Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Haunted House Diaries, the true story of a quiet Connecticut town in the center of a paranormal mystery, by William J. Hall, narrated by Barry Press and Callie Beaulieu. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Time and space are modes by which we think, and not conditions in which we live. Albert Einstein. Note to the listener. What you are about to hear is a true story. It is based on an investigation that began in 2005 and continues to this day. It features an expanded and detailed diary of events from notes written over a period of 5 decades while growing up in the home.
Forward. When I was 16, I began recording accounts of unexplainable experiences in my journal. I have finally transferred it onto a disk and onto a computer. Originally, I had decided to write down everything as it took place, and ended up with about 250 pages of experiences. I remember that I began writing things down on the backs of envelopes, in the margins of my kids' school papers, and on whatever I had close by whenever something happened. That system lent itself to built-in disorganization, although it did preserve many fascinating observations and occurrences. Fortunately, most of the scraps had been dated. In the end, I had a sizable box of history that made absolutely no sequential sense. It took me nearly 6 months of intensive sorting and filing to arrange them in order. When I got my first laptop, I spent many long nights moving the information onto it, piece by piece. For years, I have thought it held the promise of being an interesting first-person account of the phenomena that my family and I have witnessed here. It was meant for future generations that might live in this house. I'm proud to see it being expanded upon from the recollections of the family and written and released so it can be shared on a broader level. Perhaps we can band together and discover additional insights into this mystery that is not only part of my life, but part of all of our lives and very existence. My family and I would like to thank Bill Hall for bringing my story to the public and for doing so in an objective manner. We appreciate his keen ability to meticulously research a story and present it to his readers in an open and honest way. I would also like to thank Paul and Ben Eno and Shane Serwa, who have helped so much by being attentive and supportive, and opening our eyes to possibilities we never dreamed of. Donna Fillie.
Introduction. Paranormal Crossroads. Mysteries once thought to be supernatural or paranormal happenings, such as astronomical or meteorological events, are incorporated into science once their causes are understood. Michael Shermer. The investigation of the house on Lindley Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut, the subject of my book, The World's Most Haunted House, profoundly changed me. There was no preparation, however, for what lay in my immediate future. The singular, malevolent essence I had encountered in studying the case on Lindley Street would be replaced by a vast variety of fascinating, often irritating entities whose existence seemed to intrude not only on one another, but more specifically on the lives in an extended family which for generations had occupied the farmhouse that sat there at the vortex of a paranormal flap. There are some areas that are just ripe for paranormal activity. It doesn't mean everyone in that area will experience phenomena. Far from it. Some will go their entire lives without an incident. Others, however, will experience a small piece of phenomena at these virtual paranormal crossroads. They will see a UFO, or hear the cry of an unknown animal, and then see a new species with their own eyes. Or perhaps a few odd things are happening in their house and have been for years. And some, the few, lie at or near the epicenter of all such activity and experience a mix of all things paranormal. Litchfield Hills and its surrounding towns contain just such a crossroads, and located in Torrington and Goshen, Connecticut, lies one of the most fascinating and unusual paranormal flaps ever discovered. Like most wannabe paranormal investigators, I too found myself in the somewhat awkward position of wanting to be a part of it, to witness the unearthly, unexplainable things for myself. My friend and mentor, Paul Eno, explained to me how one has to be psychologically ready for this sort of journey, and it is most definitely not for the unprepared, run-of-the-mill curiosity seeker. One has to adroitly tread the fine lines between that of investigator and intruder, friend and professionally detached skeptic. However, one has to start somewhere, and as is so often the case, it begins with a boundless portion of curiosity. On that count, I certainly fit the bill. I trusted Paul's advice and proceeded with care and caution. It was during one of our regular luncheon meetings, paranormal investigators Paul and Ben Eno and I, that we began discussing one of the most interesting and varied cases they had ever investigated. This investigation had been ongoing since 2005. Paul said, "This is more in your neck of the woods, Bill, right down your alley. Would you like me to introduce you to the family? I'm sure we can arrange for all of us to meet there at the house." Boy, would I thought. It seemed almost too good to be true. Once again I was filled with the wide-eyed anticipation and heart-pounding joy of a little boy hurrying down that long winding stairway on Christmas morning. Not long after, it was arranged for Paul, Ben, Mark D'Antonio, an astrophysicist, and me to meet at the 1700s farmhouse that sits at the center of the paranormal crossroads in Litchfield Hills, Connecticut. The family was cordial and open, and the relationship built easily and comfortably. After our initial meeting, as we walked around the knoll and down the hill, Paul turned to me and said, "Perhaps this is book 2 for you. It certainly is worthy of it." That paranormal flap is the subject of this work, and one home in particular, located at the epicenter of this activity, is the subject of the haunted diaries contained within, and will be our focus for identifying the broad scope of phenomena that transverses this rural area. Paul was right. And this is it. Bill Hall, Plainville, Connecticut, November 2014. Part 1. The Haunted House Diaries. Chapter 1. An Introduction to the Diary. Every time we go to the house, there is something new. Ben Eno. It was a sunny November afternoon, just after Halloween. I was sitting across the kitchen table from Donna Fillie, the keeper of the diary that is central to this investigation. Her stories, well, really the fascinating snippets from her life, simply enthralled me. They report and document the seemingly unworldly or perhaps multi-worldly events that she has witnessed in her life while occupying the historic farmhouse. She thoughtfully reflected on the diary entries as we dug into her experiences with one from the summer of 1972.
I lie awake in the sweltering heat, so not typical for the Connecticut countryside where our old farmhouse stands. How can he sleep, my husband, in this ungodly heat, I think to myself, resentful of his quiet, even breathing. Up under the eaves in the back bedroom, we freeze throughout the long winters, then suffer in pools of sweat through the short but unpredictable weather of the summers. Restless, I swing my bare legs over the side of the large antique bed, remembering for a moment that it once belonged to my grandparents. They had a long and happy marriage, raised a family, and lived most of their years in that same house. This bed was a gift to my grandmother at the time they bought their first farm. Those mental ramblings distract me for only a moment, and my mind returns to feeling the relentless heat. I slide down onto the floor and make my way around the foot of the bed, ducking, without thinking, under the beam which supports the slanted ceiling. Maybe the bed in the spare room will offer some comfort, or at least dry sheets and more ventilation. In the black quiet, I lay down, hiking my flimsy nightgown up to my hips. Suddenly, my eyes flip open. My breathing becomes deliberately short and quiet. There is a hand on the back of my left thigh, seductively rubbing up and down. It is not a physical hand, no feeling of flesh against flesh, or the distinguishable massage of individual fingers, but, nonetheless, a hand-shaped area of pressure. It begins to move, slowly rubbing up and down, back and forth. My skin begins to crawl. Kicking my legs wildly in the frightening discomfort of the moment, I bolt back into my bedroom, waking my sleeping husband. Hysterical as I am, I try to explain what has just occurred.
The events, the encounters, that Donna and Bob have experienced are something more than the typical ghost stories encountered around campfires, or for that matter, even those offered in professional reports or exposés. They do not conform to the more typical single-entity encounter. In their lives, a wide variety of paranormal themes have been playing out repeatedly, across many decades and during generations before them. 5 generations of the family have lived in the house currently owned by Donna and Bob. "And why is it you continue to stay here?" I asked. Donna shrugged her shoulders. "I honestly don't know. Understand that I am not afraid. This is my home. It's all I know. Throughout everything we've seen and heard here at our house, our ties remain strong and unwavering." The extraordinary old New England farmhouse was built in 1793 and has been home to 6 generations of the Randall family. Donna and her family have been there for more than 60 of those years. It is extraordinary in size and stark simplicity, in service and security. It is extraordinary in that it was constructed at the point of a paranormal flap where time and dimensions, life forms and realms flow together seamlessly, where visitation between and among them occurs more by chance than by plan, more as unexpected bumps in the night than the meeting of well-defined visions. It is less a haunted house than a pathside inn where entities from across time and space and multiple dimensions converge and lodge on their ways toward their individually unique destinations. Donna's family had the nearly exclusive opportunity to engage these essences, witness their endless forms, and become familiar with their obsessions and patterns, their persistence and often their capricious nature. I will share with you their experiences down through the generations, what we believe we have learned, and their own reactions to them, which range from delight to irritation to exasperation, but rarely fear. Some they recognize, most they do not, but each of them has presented a wonder-filled possibility for the family to gain a glimpse into the elusive and confounding realm of paranormal phenomena. This house is Donna's home, and like many homes, it has typically been a comfortable, safe, and serene oasis away from the trials and tribulations of the world outside. Unlike most homes, they have always had co-inhabitants who, it appears, also claim the house as their home. Donna grew up learning to be pleased and proud to share. Donna is not inclined to argue or debate the point. She knows what she has experienced and is content that knowledge is sufficient beyond any arguments others have proposed. There are visitors. She has seen them, been touched by them, been sung to by them. She has seen unsupported orbs in the house with the naked eye, objects moved with nothing propelling them, and time slips, and photographed them and recorded the noises and voices of invisible entities. As she explained, they can be very persistent, and in her very human way, she has often had to explain to them that it is time for them to shut up and let the family get some sleep. Few people outside of the family are aware of the situation here, but the ones who have ventured closely into their lives have been changed forever by their experiences. To the casual observer passing by on his way through the lush green meadows of rural Connecticut, the large old house is one of the finest examples of authentic Americana that New England has to offer. Listed in the National Archives, it adheres to the stark lack of detail which is the hallmark of most structures built in 1793. First serving as a general store, it was added onto in the 1880s. It still sits proudly on a low knoll, protected by the mountains at the rear and overlooking the fields and meadows in the valley below. When Donna was born in 1950, she was brought to this very house straight from the hospital. Waiting for her were a host of family members, all of whom lived in the house at the time. With 13 rooms and an apartment in the basement, there was room to house a large number of people. At that time, they included her parents, her sister Diane, her great-grandparents, grandparents, and her Aunt Noni. Life was wonderful at the house, with large, beautifully decorated Christmas trees during the winter holidays, picnics and lawn parties filled with laughter during the summers, and regularly demonstrated feelings of love, regardless of the season. Among all of that, there lurked the constant presence of more than a few unwanted otherworldly prowlers that all too often disrupted their lives. As a child, it was common for Donna to see and hear a wide array of nighttime apparitions. Hallways echoed with the sounds of footsteps, and the voices of uncountable spirits could be heard engaged in unintelligible chatter or quietly chanting or singing hymns that droned on into the night. As children, Diane and Donna rarely had the luxury of a full night's sleep, because they would be awakened by their parents, if not by these puzzling visitors, making sure they were still safe in their room. When their parents would hear the hushed voices of the invisible presences, it would initiate the familiar ritual of checking the house and making sure the children were safe in their beds. Donna's aunt married in 1958 and moved out of the house. In 1962, her grandfather died, followed by her grandmother in 1966. Subsequent to that time, her sister Diane also lived in the house. At that time, the disruptions by the nightly visitors markedly increased. When invited to spend the night with childhood friends, Donna was surprised to find an absence of voices and footsteps and the droning melodies that had become such a constant and normal, if often irritating, part of her life experience. Their houses appeared to be clear, as she came to characterize them. She never discussed that aspect of life with her friends, partly because they didn't bring it up, and partly because she looked upon it as a relatively normal aspect of life. It was not until much later that Donna would come to realize how unique all of that was to her specific circumstances.
A personal note from Donna. This diary follows the hauntings that have been present in my family house throughout my life. but specifically during the period from my late teenage years until 2003. I began this record as a means for personal amusement. Still, I strived to record each situation with as much accuracy as possible. During this period, I got married and gave birth to 2 children. My daughter Michelle was the focus of special attention by these visitors during her childhood. It was more of a trying experience for her than I realized until one day she confided, "I really like to sleep at Charlene's house, Mommy, because it's clear." Although my family has been deeply affected by the situation in this house, it hasn't been the source of severe mental trauma or psychological problems. What it has done is to provide us the unique opportunity to peek into another dimension that few have experienced. We have acquired an understanding of sorts about what the future holds for us. Upon reflection, we understand that what we have witnessed would send the most stout-hearted outsider running for their lives, screaming into the cold, dark night. Perhaps we were chosen to witness these events because of our basic level-headed nature, our understanding of the world, or because we had no preconceived ideas about what a haunting should be. Whatever the reason, we shy away from the word haunting and choose to believe that whatever is here would, more than likely, rather be somewhere else. There is no panic. There is no ongoing terror. Typically, there is not even any anger, irritation perhaps, but not anger. We witness no head-twisting, red-eyed monsters hiding under our beds, at least not yet. We are content in the knowledge and understanding that we are not alone here in this unique place and time. Chapter 2. Diary Entries from the 1960s. I'll just keep writing about it in the hope that I can get a better handle on things if I can keep track of what is actually happening. Donna Fillie. Entry number 1. Winter, 1966. Mom and Dad are away, visiting Eunice and Harry tonight. I was watching a movie and enjoying being alone for a few hours. While sitting on the couch, I felt the room grow really cold, not just a regular type of cold, but a bone-chilling, piercing, hug-yourself kind of cold. The heat was on and the furnace was running, but God, it was so cold. It felt like something was drawing the blood out of my body. It was like dead cold, like every bit of heat in my body was being sucked out of me. When I held my hand a few inches away from my cheek, I could feel the cold radiating from my body. It was all quite bizarre. At one point, the doorknob to the downstairs bedroom started jiggling. Presently, the whole door began shaking. Man, I got scared. I walked up to the door, but I didn't have the guts to open it. Brandy, our dog, usually inquisitive if not downright nosy, didn't even come into the room to check it out, so I went to get her. Her presence was a source of comfort and reassurance. I had to drag her across the wooden floor. She actually made marks with her toenails as she resisted being moved toward the door. Her hair stood straight up on her back, and she fought hard to get away from me. It was very clear that she did not want to go near that room. As I released her collar, an ice-cold breeze blew by me, strong enough to move my hair and ripple my clothes. Mom and Dad arrived home soon after that. I related the story, still feeling the chill. Dad checked the room. Everything was quiet, and nothing had been disturbed. I guess I don't really want to spend that sort of quiet evening alone anymore. A lot of weird stuff has always gone on here, but it was never anything we could see. All I know is that now things have begun moving that aren't supposed to. We've had hairbrushes slide across counters and hang in midair. Not long ago, a candlestick slid across the stereo and also hung in midair. On one occasion, a wreath came off the wall, and instead of falling directly to the floor, it landed way out in the middle of the room, something we couldn't duplicate when we tried to replicate the motion. Entry number 2. Summer, 1967. Dad was lying on his bed upstairs listening to a baseball game on the radio. The floor all around his bed started to snap loudly. It was a sharp sound, like the crack of a bullwhip. Then the mattress lifted up just a bit, as if someone was under his bed that was too large for the space. He hurried off the bed and looked underneath, but of course nothing was there. It was funny in a way, because he was so disgruntled by it all. Dad worried constantly about money. He worried about the financial result of people finding out about the things going on in the house. He had a great sense of humor, so he didn't take most of the things too seriously, certainly not as threatening. I often compared notes with my mother about the things we witnessed in the house. We would ask each other, "Did you hear that? Did you see such and such?" We sat and philosophized. What could it be? Our lives were filled with so many strange things. Entry number 3. Summer, 1967. So many odd things happen around this house. It is often amusing. Last night, the upstairs toilet kept flushing itself. Over and over it flushed. Dad kept getting up to check, but he could find nothing wrong with the mechanism. Everything seemed perfectly fine. I guess just let them have their fun, whatever they are. Entry number 4. Summer, 1967. This is really a puzzle. I was sitting on the couch talking with Mom. I was wearing my silver chain, as usual. I often put my finger under it and slide my finger back and forth. It's one of those unconscious habits that I'm often not even aware of. After a few minutes, I went to put my finger back to my chain, and the chain was gone. I felt down the front of my sweater, then got up and checked the couch cushions and the floor. It was nowhere to be found. After searching the area, I walked across the room and started up the stairs. On the 4th step, I saw my chain just lying there. It was clasped, and the front of the chain was dangling over the front edge of the step, gently swaying back and forth. That chain definitely would not fit over my head without being unclasped. I had not felt a thing as it had been removed. Unclasped and removed. Great. Now they're pilfering jewelry. Entry number 5. Fall, 1967. Diane washed her hair in the kitchen sink this morning. She set her jade ring on the windowsill, and when she reached for it, it was gone. She got really upset and had Dad check the pipes to make sure it didn't go down the drain. She just came downstairs and told us that she found the ring in her jewelry box, and all of the other jewelry had been pushed aside to make room for it in the center. Her ring was pressed down into the velvet so hard it left a clear impression. It gave me the creeps because Mom had a similar experience a while back. Mom and Dad had gone away with their friends for the weekend. When they returned, Mom discovered that she had lost a ring that meant a lot to her. She called the motel where they had stayed and was told it had not been found. She knew that she had worn it because she seldom took it off. The next day she returned to work and told her friends what had happened. They suggested that she empty out her jewelry box and check, believing that she must have forgotten to take it with her. Although she felt certain that could not have been the case, she emptied the box and checked it on several occasions. The ring was gone. 5 months later, my grandmother's brother died and my parents were on their way to the funeral. Although they were already in the car, my mother decided that she wanted to wear a pin on her dress, so she came back into the house and opened her jewelry box. All of her jewelry was pushed aside, and her missing ring was resting there in the center, pushed so hard into the velvet that it left a distinctive mark. My sister and I were flabbergasted. After that happened, we sometimes talked about it and wondered if it had been the work of Grandmother. Entry number 6. Fall, 1967. A sizable white wisp that was shaped like a Hershey's kiss appeared in the corner of the living room today. The top of it slowly became elongated and then started curling upward toward the ceiling. As the top became longer and thinner, The bottom seemed to decrease in size and volume, and then it disappeared into the ceiling as if it had been sucked up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?